we're trying our best, right? And I know that we say that all the time, we're trying our best, we're trying our best, but I think this is one of those areas, and this is one of those times where we really are trying our best, and that having breakdowns and having pauses and having moments of just complete exhaustion is human and it's real. And woe to the person that is not having that, right? Because we're all in the same boat in this one. And if we're not allowing ourselves those moments to break down, and if we're not giving ourselves that space to recognize that that is real and that is human, and we are real and that we are human, then I think we're not teaching each other and our children about what it means to be real and what it means to be a part of this human community, right? I think the people who are like, this is amazing and this is once in a lifetime. Well, I think we all know that this is very scary. And there are some very real and scary things happening every second that's out there. And we're carrying that. And I think we have to recognize to ourselves that, like, that knot that we feel in our shoulder and that tension that we feel in our chest, right? It's that we're holding together both our family and we're holding together this tension of fear that's out there, and that is palatable and that is unknown. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to mention that that we we're not meant to kind of like clap our hands and smile at this moment. We are meant to provide as stable and as beautiful and as connected as a time as possible as whoever it is that's in our home. And we're also meant to give ourselves the opportunities to just completely fall apart, because who wouldn't? We all have fallen apart. I fall apart by 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And then I pick myself back up, and then from 8 to 10, it's like really solid, and then from like 10 to 10:15, I have another breakdown, and then that usually gets me through another few hours. And I think we have to remember that, like, there are no good days and bad days. There are good moments and difficult moments. Um, I read a book, Have a Little Faith, about 10 years ago, and it was by the author Mitch Albom, who wrote Tuesdays with Maury. And the the premise of the book was that after he became famous by writing this book, his childhood rabbi called him up, right? Who was like 80 years old and retired, and his childhood rabbi was like, Mitch, and he was like, we're so proud of you. And Mitch was like, oh, thanks so much. That was a great book. And his childhood rabbi, in a sense, says, I want you to write my eulogy. And Mitch Albom was like, are you dying? He's like, no, but I will die at some point, and I want to reconnect with you because you're the one that I want to have written my eulogy. And so the book is Mitch Albom really reconnecting with his childhood rabbi. And I say that all as a set induction for this one line in the book. And the rabbi's wife, his longtime wife, she's at the synagogue, and someone says to her in front of the whole congregation, what's it like being married to the great rabbi? I forget whatever his name is. And she says, it's been 35 years of complete bliss. And there was this like dead pause in silence. And someone says, you guys have been married for 55 years. She goes, right. 2 hours here, one day there, 5 hours there. It adds up to 35 years of complete bliss. And I think that's really how we have to look at this, right? It's like, how was today? Well, today was good. We had a half an hour here and an hour there and 10 minutes here and 15 minutes there. And those were great moments. Those were like pockets of miracles, of pockets of just awe and wonder. And then I needed to respond to an email, or I needed to do the dishes, or I just needed 10 minutes alone and they wouldn't give it to me and I lost it. And that is okay, because we're all writing this playbook together. Um, and I think it's just as important for us to reconnect with who we really are. And that is beautiful and broken people who are doing the best that we can and struggling through this time of unknown. And we're doing exactly what our parents did and what our grandparents did. And that's the one thing that we have learned and we've inherited through the entire generations past, is that everyone goes through that moment, that trial moment, right? And I think this is that trial moment for many of us. If we want to take it into biblical Torah terms, one of the 5 books of Moses, right? One of the 5 books in the Torah is called Bamidbar, the wilderness. And it's both actual and metaphoric. And the metaphor there is that they're in the actual wilderness. And it's a time in our people's tradition where we were in the wilderness, we were lost and we were wandering. And we had great moments in that book and we had really difficult moments in that book, right? Right. At the same time that we received Torah from Sinai, we also committed the sin of the golden calf. And if that does not teach us the experiment of the human condition, that we both have great peaks and horrific valleys all within the same time frame, then I don't know what will teach us. And I think we can learn from that in that moment that like we are in the wilderness, like what our ancestors were. And in the wilderness, we are going to have revelation that we receive Torah. And in the wilderness, we are going to sin and, you know, beat ourselves over the chest for days to come. Um, and we wouldn't expect anything less from ourselves. And I don't think we should expect anything less from each other. I think the most important thing that we learned from that wilderness is that none of us walked through it alone, that we were 600,000 strong, as the tradition says. And when one of us fell, you never fell on the ground, you fell on somebody else and they picked you back up. And I think that's what we have to do right now. As first and foremost, we keep each other healthy. You know, at the end of the day, if everyone is crying, but everyone is healthy, that's a win. Um, so we have to keep each other inside and we have to keep each other healthy. And if you've done that, right, if you've stayed distant, if you've stayed inside, and if you've stayed healthy, that's a win. Like that is a win. It doesn't matter if they built blocks or did anything, you know, to advance their mind. If we've advanced their bodies, then that's the right thing. Um, and if that's the bar that we set for ourselves, then anything on top of that, like you've earned 2 drinks tonight. So I want to pause there because I think, as you all know me, if I talk anything longer than 4 minutes, I start to get self-conscious. So I just want to pause there and see if anyone wanted to ask a question or say anything or ask me to say anything else while I take a sip.
I just wanted to thank you for joining. I don't know. Jason keeps looking at me with everything you say. You gotta remember that part. Like
Yeah,
it just it all resonates and it's hard, but there's a lot of good. Like he's an amazing cook and we're spending a lot of time together and it's not all gonna be easy. And
I mean, I think you're right, April. I think this really is a time for us to recognize our blessings. I mean, again, this is not a time to, you know, this isn't spring break, right? This isn't summer vacation, right? This is a time that's difficult and a time that's hard, and yet during these moments of difficulty we can still have moments of great beauty. And I think those moments of great beauty is when we recognize our blessings. You know, for those of us that are fortunate to have a home with space, for those of us who are fortunate to have enough food, for those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to buy enough food so that we're not constantly going out and exposing ourselves to some of the dangers that are out there. The blessing of being able to have more time with our children and and kind of focus time. Um, Something that I haven't been doing that I finally did today is, you know, I finally put my phone down and I finally put my email down and I said, if there's one thing that this horrific pandemic can try and teach us is that maybe we all need to slow down. Um, and and so but I did not put in a away message like I'm going to be away from my phone from 8 to 9. No, like screw that. Like I'm going to be away from my phone because my kids are important, and we can't just put that in press releases, and we can't just put that in, you know, in corporate emails. Like we have to live that. And so I think there's a blessing of being able to have the confidence and the security to say, you know what, I'm just going to dedicate this time to my kids, and more than just showing them wonder, like I'm going to open up my heart to let them show me that wonder as well. And I think that worked for 5 minutes, and I think I yelled at them for 10 minutes, and then I think it worked for another 5 minutes. But again, like give yourself that opportunity to just sit and say, we're just gonna get silly. Like what was that? You know, this gives us that time to pause, right? Like what was that parent that I envisioned myself to be like prior to having kids? And then work and kids and cleaning and craziness and everything got in the way. Like maybe this is that global pause, slow down for us to reconnect with that earlier vision that we had, right? So that we have the blessing of shelter, and we have the blessing of food, and we have the blessing of the means to buy food, and we have the blessing of this time with our children. Um, and listen, I think for those of us that are on this call right now that are feeling okay, I think the biggest blessing of all is health. We're commanded to say 100 blessings a day, and there are the daily miracles that we say when we wake up in the morning. And I think if we do one thing that's a part of the tradition every morning for this period of time, I think it's the blessing for health, right? And it's a simple thank you, God, for allowing my body to work, because I think where we're seeing this global pandemic, um, this is a moment where we actually say, wow, like our bodies are complex, and at the same time our bodies are deeply fragile, that like they can be exposed to this thing that we can't even see, and that's the ball game. And so I think this is a moment in time for us to reconnect with those blessings of saying, you know what, my body is fragile and it's beautiful and it's complex, and this morning I'm thanking God for my health. And I think these are those moments that we can pause and reconnect.
How do you let the negativity of being worried about this whole situation not like bring you down? Because I feel like that part of it, like I'm anxious, I feel like, God, what if like I have it, any of us have it, like I keep counting the days since the last time like we went out, like okay, it's been these many days, what's the likelihood? And then you keep reading stuff that, oh, it's not just 5 days, it could be 2 weeks, it could be like 3 weeks. And like how do you like block that out, or how do you cope with that?
So it's not blocking it out, it is coping with that. I think a few things. Number one, um, we're all feeling that. And moments like this in which we can connect with one another, that helps. Number two, it's not to say I can't focus on that, but I'd say to be honest with our children, but to shield our children from our fear. Right? At the end of the day, God willing, when we get past this and our children look back at this moment, and they will remember this moment, they're going to remember what we did for them in this moment. And I think what we can do to provide them beauty in this moment. And part of that is faking it. I honestly, I'll let you all behind the curtain because we're in this weird moment in time. Um, that was one of the lessons that I learned when I was in rabbinical school, and now that I'm a professor at the rabbinical school, it's one of the lessons I teach my rabbinical students. I say to them, listen, I wish we lived in this utopian, beautiful world in which every Friday night that you led services and every Saturday morning you led services, you woke up and you're like, I am feeling wonderful to give a spiritual experience. No, I think the reality is most rabbis, when we lead services, we're in it and we're feeling it and it's great. And there's a few times during the month or during the year where we're having some really difficult times. And what do we do right before we get onto the pulpit? We wrap ourselves in our talit, we say the blessing, and sometimes for me it's, God, get me through this moment and help me put my stuff to the side. Um, and now I think, whenever you all see me offer services, you're going to be thinking, is Joel really in it or is something else going on? But I think that's something that we have to do as parents, right? We have to say, we have to wake up and say, okay, now that I'm with my kids, like, God, give me the strength, um, that I'm going to provide them for this beautiful spiritual moment. And they're going to get through this being like, wow, like, this is like an amazing day. And then when we put them to sleep, then we can break down.
Well, I have a
Um,
question, Joel.
yeah.
What's gonna happen, like as far as them getting a little bit traumatized over this? Because um, I feel like they eventually will. Like once this is over, they're gonna be paranoid. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I can't get close to you. I can't get touch you. I can't." They're gonna be a little bit standoffish, which to me is concerning.
Yeah.
Because I want them to be engaging. I want them to be loving, and
So listen, I think it's not just our kids. I think our entire society is going to go through this period of transition, right? Like none of us are going to get like there's there is no good, like, there's not going to be a all clear moment, right? Like, just as like this isolation was kind of slow rolling, right? Just like this, by the way, that's me, I'm sorry guys. Like, just like this isolation, it was like, all right, now this school's going to close and this school's going to close, and for 2 weeks, right? We're going to come out of this in the same way. So will our kids be traumatized? Maybe, maybe not. Will they come out of this in a slow way? Yeah, but they're going to be mirroring us, right? Not like it's not going to be May 15th and everyone's going to be like, yeah, right? I think it's just going to take time. I think it's going to be okay. You know what? And the elbow is going to go to the fist bump, then maybe to the high five, then maybe to the hug. I think the best thing we can do for one another is give each other time and give our children time, because yeah, we have scared the crap out of them. No touching, step back. And by the way, we needed to do that, right? There was no like, Betsy Brown Braun perfect right way, like beautiful wrapping ourselves in the tent of love way to do it. No, we were all like, oh my God, this is everywhere, and I need to grab my child and say, get away from whoever. Like this was thrown upon us, so there was no beautiful way to do it, and therefore there's not going to be really a beautiful way to come out of it. And so I think the best thing that we have to remember is that they're going to be okay, because we're going to make them okay, but it's going to be a transition for all of us.
Another thing I want to ask, actually, if then nobody else wants to say, how do you deal with the everyday guilt of you're not doing enough for them? Or, like, for example, Ethan hasn't done his homework in 3 days.
Good.
Really good.
I mean good. I mean good. Why? The most important thing that we can do for our kids right now is make sure that they are hydrated, fed, healthy, and emotionally secure. He hasn't done his homework in a few days. Okay.
But I have this constant sense of guilt. Like, okay, but I'm just frustrated with not having the energy to sit down with him and pull him and sit, or
Listen,
you know what I mean? Like, I get mad at myself for not having the energy.
and here's what you need to remember. A, I'm not an educator. There are definitely educators on this call right now. But I'll say this a few things based on a lot of articles I've read, and I've done a really good job of alleviating myself with a lot of guilt. I'm very proud of that. But here's what you have to remember. One, there are multiple ways to learn. And I think this is one of those moments in which we have to embrace multiple learners, multiple modes of education. I think, and like, there's probably like really sophisticated educational terms that I'm like butchering, like people who have spent years writing about this. There's like probably really quick terms that are like on the tip of my tongue that I'm just butchering right now. But there are multiple learners and multiple modes of education and multiple ways to learn. And okay, so maybe he's not doing the 20 minutes of work that Kenter sends out, which is, by the way, really pathetic. But we can talk about that offline. Are you reading to him? Is he having opportunities to play with Legos? Is he going outside in the backyard? Right? Like, are there ways in which he is being creative? I mean, I was joking because my brother Joshua is a big advocate for the arts and for arts in schools. And I was joking. I said, listen, the one positive point, I was like, the one positivity of schools being shut down is my kids finally get science, art, and physical education. Right? Like Noah and Zeb, they get like 1 hour of art like a month, right? They're getting like an hour of art a day. And like we got them like cool paints, right? So like I feel like my kids right now are getting a lot more sun when there is sun. They're getting their bodies moving and they're being creative. So like honestly, read to him, let him build a fort, like get every blanket and every sheet out there, right? Like that is the learning stuff that we can take advantage of right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to fold the sheets afterwards. But teach them how to fold laundry.
I think Ellie or I would say the same thing. And I know you talked to Alana and we had this conversation earlier. And yeah, it's just enjoy the time that you have with them. all the creativity, all of this, the learning, the empathy, the caring for their siblings, the helping you around the house. There's also the stuff that they're not helping you with and making it really hard. But
More.
the other stuff is really important in their self-esteem and their character building and just who they are and what they're learning from you in terms of what you're passing down to them.
Also, schedules are really important, and I'm a fan of routine, and sometimes I'm like a little too like routine oriented with my kids. But this whole past few weeks, I was thinking of one of my professors when I was in the seminary. His name is Dr. Barth, and he was this brilliant Talmudic midrashic professor. Remember the first day of midrash class, he taught a bunch of us third year rabbinical students this line, and the line was Ein muhdam ve'ein muchar b'Torah, which translates to there's no before or after in Torah. For linear thinkers, we were like, what the? Like that's not true. No, there has to be a start, there has to be a middle, there has to be an end. But he was a midrash professor, right? And midrash are these like, fantastical stories throughout the tradition, right? And I think his point was saying that like Torah and tradition is playful. So like there was no, and then this day and this day and this day. And I'm trying to think about that during this time, right? Like there's no before or after. And I was speaking with someone the other day, one of like these experts in the field, and they said to me, they're like, maybe this is a time where although you keep them on like a bedtime routine, like explore different hours, right? Because like my first few days, I was like, all right, we have to wake up at this time and they have to get started on their schoolwork at 8:10 because 8:10, is the time that they get started on their work at Kenter. But I'm like, you know what? If they're playing and hanging out until 10 o'clock, not watching screen time, but if they're like outside and getting dirty until like 10 o'clock in the morning, then you know what? The learning starts at 10:30. Like, don't be afraid to change up these hours right now, right? Like there's no before or after. We have been given this like block of unknown time. Let's take advantage of it, right? Let's make it crazy a little
Like,
bit. And again, there's no good days, there's no bad days. There are pockets. You have to remember there are pockets. Like that's what we have to remember. And but that's life, right? Life is just a bunch of pockets, right? I had a good day today. Well, no, some days suck, right? But I had a pocket of beauty.
yeah.
So we have to remember during this time.
Okay.
Anyone else? And by the way, they don't think I have it all together. Like I lose my crap on a daily basis, right? And I I get so exhausted. Like I just need to respond to this email, and like I try to like bargain and rationalize with my kids like we're on the same wavelength, right? And it's the only reason why I'm like this is because they've been asleep for a half an hour, and I finally calmed down. But actually, you know what I did last night? Yesterday was one of those difficult days, and I was so last night, like right before I went to bed, I made signs and I put them all over the house, and they were signs for me. And the signs were like, smile, it's gonna be okay. You're never gonna get this time again. Just have fun. Make sure they're laughing, right? Because I was being like, you need to do your reading, right? Rather than like, how you doing? Let's read. So like, I'm gonna make those signs, tonight as well, because I think they tore them up and threw them away. And so we just have to go with it.
I just feel it's so hard, like day after day. First, you don't know how long you're going to be in this situation.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, if it was 2 weeks, I'll be like, okay, I come up with ideas. Now I'm like, God, I don't even know how long it's going to be. And it's just like, as you said, it's like pockets of being good and pockets of like being really hard. Like
Yeah.
today for like an hour, I was like, I'm not saying anything. Like I had heard so much complaint from them. I was like, I'm just not going to talk.
Yeah. 100%. I'm like, why are you complaining? I just gave you everything you wanted, right? Because that's how they're communicating to us that they're stressed, that this is unknown for them, that
I hear I'm hungry like 100 times a day.
seriously, right? I'm like, guys, we're rationing. Like I can't go back to the store.
Yeah, they're
Right?
home and they see a fridge, they're hungry, and then I find myself in the fridge all day long. I'm like,
Totally.
all that weight I lost is all coming back.
But like, remember, like, our kids are stressed, and their
One of
stress
the
comes. Sorry.
Mhm.
no, go for it.
No, go, Ellie, please.
Oh, sure. One of the things I did because I was hearing that I'm hungry all day is actually made them like snack baskets that live in the kitchen. So each kid has a snack basket. So they also are starting to realize the rationing thing because they'll see, okay, I have 5 snacks for the day. I know mom's going to give me breakfast. I know mom's going to give me lunch. I know mom's going to give me dinner. So like they'll see the basket and then they'll be able to like figure out if they're really hungry and they'll be able to grab something themselves.
Oh, that's a good
So
idea.
smart.
I need to make one of those for Jason. He goes, it's called the cupboard.
They also mix it up with like treats and then there's like a banana, but like there's also gummies. So like they can also realize like it's not all like junky food and not all healthy food.
Yeah.
We're on day 3 of the basket. Don't
Right.
like so far it's working. But every day is an experiment.
Right. And I think just the most important thing is that, like, we have to alleviate ourselves of the guilt, because this is unknown to all of us and it was thrust upon us. And this is one of the first times in history where we couldn't learn something from our grandparents.
Yeah.
People are going to learn from us. But this is the first time that we have to write the page in history, and that's scary. And we're doing a good job. Like, we're doing a good job. Like, that's also the blessing that we have to remember. Like, we're doing okay. Remember, a C is still passing.
I thought D was still passing.
See? Right? Just go pass fail.
How do you keep this spiritual thing like up for the holidays coming up? For me, I can never remember being away from my family on holidays. I mean, I lived a couple years away for school. I flew every holiday home. It's just one of those things like that. It's just, and my mom keeps saying, what do you mean we're not going to be together for Passover? And I'm like,
nope.
Like, how do you do it? It's hard.
So this is the one thing we did learn from our ancestors. Like, if there's one thing that we've learned from our grandparents and great grandparents, is that sometimes the holidays are not perfect, right? Like, think about those holidays that were spent fleeing oppression. Think about the holidays that were spent in an unknown land where half your family wasn't going to be there for another few years. Think about the holidays that were spent where we couldn't celebrate the holidays because we had to hide our Judaism. This is something that we have learned. And what did we learn from it? That we're still going to find those pockets of meaning. And if there's one holiday to have this, it's Passover. Like, we all know Passover as that communal holiday where we all sit around the Seder. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely it. But if you think about it, the theme of Passover, right? The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim literally translates to narrow places. Could there be a more perfect theme for Passover than right now, that we were all stuck in our narrow places, right? Like, our homes, as blessings and as beautiful as they really are, for one of the first times in our lifetime, mimicking that narrow place of Egypt, where you just feel the walls are closing in on you and you just feel that you are disconnected from the beauty of life all around you. So I think the theme of Passover is going to be so much more meaningful to us. And Passover begs of us every year to be creative. I think this is a little too creative, but here's the best thing that we have to do. We have to say to our kids, yeah, you know what? We're going to do Passover over FaceTime, right? And we just have to plan a little bit more. And we're going to send all of you so many resources. I have colleagues right now, and I'm a part of some think tanks right now, where we are creating resources in real time on how to lead virtual multifamily Passover Seders online. And is it going to be easy? No. And is it going to be seamless? No. And is it going to be beautiful? Yes. And is it going to be hard? Yes. But just have to remember that, like, our ancestors prepared us for this moment. They prepared us for a holiday that wasn't going to be like it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, our kids are going to remember this Passover, and they're not going to remember it as difficult, right? Because remember, what is one of the main themes of the 4 questions? Manish Tanah Halala Hazeh. How is this night different than every other night? And the reality is, if we keep our Seder the same year after year, then that night's not different. This night is different than every other night this past year, but it's the same as the Seder last year. This year, this Seder, as difficult and as not as it planned as it used to be, this is going to be that unique, maybe once in a lifetime moment where this night is completely different than any other night we've ever had. And if we make that fun and interactive, our kids are going to grow up remembering this year's Seder with such beauty. Now, we might feel a little broken, but we have to remember, if we transfer our spirituality through their beauty, this is going to be one of the most meaningful Seders of their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I refuse to buy kosher for Passover chips.
You don't have to.
It's not going to happen this year.
I am giving you that out. And
no kosher for Passover ketchup.
Yeah,
no kosher for Passover.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's another thing. Like, we need to do the best we can do to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to put yourself and your family in harm's way trying to get that kosher for Passover ketchup, Heinz is just fine. And you have to have to remember that.
I don't believe in it. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I've bought it before. Just
right. But for
those, just grabbed his phone to try to buy it online.
Yeah, but honestly,
he put it down. He goes, "Never mind, never mind."
The most important part about this Passover is that you take all the precautions to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And if venturing out to that one crowded market where you can get that one kosher for Passover thing, then I don't think the Jewish tradition would want you to do that.
Yeah, that's true. You got to remember.
We have to remember that.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. Anyone else? Before we go to bed, because our kids are going to wake us up soon. April, thank you for setting this up for us. And Ellie, thank you for your wonderful insights. And everyone, thank you for, I think the most important thing is that, at least with each other, we can't be afraid to be vulnerable, because we're all going through it. And it's okay for our kids to see our vulnerability. And it's also okay for our kids to have nothing but this beautiful, innocent view. Mm-hmm. We want that for them.
Yeah, there.